To give you a sense of what's going on the ground in Afghanistan, I am pleased to be joined today by Clarissa Ward, who has reported from Afghanistan for years and has been going, frankly, wall to wall since this started. She is CNN's Chief International Correspondent. I know you know her.
Hi. Oh my gosh, wait, I'm a little dark here. So hold on. I am here. I'm just gonna go. Can you put the light on me? I'm in our live shot position, so you're getting the real, just point the light on me. Hey, there we go. Hi.
Hi. What time is it there?
3:15.
And I want people to get a sense. Clarissa, thank you. You've been doing exceptional work. I told people I'd get a chance to speak to you and ask what they'd like to say, and they just said, please thank her. We're all watching.
Oh, wow, that's really kind. Thank you very much.
So I don't have a lot of time with you. I'd love to know, the National Security Advisor has said that the U.S. is going to do everything it can to get people out by August 31st. First, can you give us a sense, what was it like in the streets today?
So in the streets now, the Taliban's very much in control. And one thing they're pretty good at is bringing law and order because they have their fighters on every corner and people are really scared. So the streets are actually fairly calm in a very strange sort of way. We went out to a market. I'd say like half of the shops were open. There's Taliban fighters kind of patrolling around, but people, for the most part, kind of ignored them. The day before, we'd seen a lot of people going up and wanting to take selfies with them and pose for pictures, which was kind of an extraordinary thing to see. But what I've been sort of telling people a lot is that you don't get necessarily the best sense on the streets of what the reality is here on the ground, because the people who are the most frightened, and there's a lot of them, are not going out of their houses right now. We're in a sort of private compound here. The staff who work here have basically not really turned up for work, understandably, because there's like a ton of Taliban fighters right outside our door right now. And for a lot of people, that's absolutely petrifying. They're worried that being associated with Westerners or having worked with the Americans in any capacity could be really dangerous for them.
The Taliban has projected this image of a kinder, gentler Taliban going forward. They've even said they'll embrace women's rights. Do you buy it at all?
You know, the problem is they say that, and then you kind of press them on the fundamentals of the ideology, and they really haven't changed at all. So they're like, yes, women can be educated, and yes, women can work, but then they're like, there needs to be complete segregation between men and women. So women can only work in an office where there's only other women. And I said, what about, could a woman be a journalist like I am on television? We have amazing female Afghan journalists in this country doing incredible reporting. And he was like, yes, this is a commander I was talking to. Yes, but they need to wear a proper covering. And I was like, okay, like I was wearing like a full scarf, abaya. No, 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 he said. They need to cover their faces as well. And they need to wear gloves to cover their hands. So, you know, once you push them a little harder and probe a little deeper, I think you quickly realize that they can say one thing, but the reality on the ground, I just don't see it changing that much.
I mentioned earlier the National Security Advisor said the U.S. will do everything it can to get people out. Do you sense the magnitude? How many people need safe exit? And are there signs it's working?
I mean, it's working for a lucky select few, sure. But there's tens of thousands of people in this country who may have worked with the US military, may have worked with the US Embassy, may have worked with a number of different international organizations, NATO forces, journalists, news organizations, charities, you name it. And unfortunately, a lot of them have the same problem, which is that they apply for this CIV, this special visa, and they get rejected because, you know, whatever, it could be a bureaucratic issue, a computer issue, a confusion about a recommendation letter. There's any number of minutia that can interfere with the process. And so a lot of people find themselves in the position of not knowing what to do. How do they reapply? I talked to one man who was threatening to set fire to himself outside the US Embassy. That's how desperate he was. Obviously, that didn't happen. And anyway, it couldn't happen anymore because there isn't a US Embassy. And that's their worry, right? There isn't a US Embassy. So once all the Americans are gone, what's their recourse?
I know you've reported from Afghanistan on and off for years, and I was wondering if you could help this audience understand some of the people you would work with are translators
Mhm.
or fixers. They're local Afghans. Who are the people who have helped? What have they done? And does the U.S. have an obligation to get them out?
I mean, you have to understand that anyone who worked with the US here was facing a risk in doing that, right? Because before the Taliban emerged as this new political force, they spent 2 decades waging a vicious insurgency where people who worked with Americans could be shot or killed in any number of manners, targeted assassinations, car bombings, you name it. So they were already taking a risk to work with Americans, but many of them, they believed in this project and they believed in creating a better future for Afghanistan. And it's not that they feel that the Americans needed to stay here forever. And they understand, most of the Afghans I talk to, that it's unrealistic that America would keep fighting this war for more decades. But I think they're just so heartbroken and disappointed by the way this execution was carried out. It was like the ripcord was suddenly pulled on them and they didn't have a chance to get their paperwork together, to prepare, to look into their security, to find a safe house, to move their children. And that's why I think you see so much heartache and so much bitterness and so much rage.
A lot of people are asking me to ask you, do you feel safe and how will you get out?
Do I feel safe? I feel reasonably safe, to be honest, because the Taliban so far have been pretty clear about the fact that as journalists, we are welcome to report here. I don't know how long that spirit of benevolence remains, but so far, as you may have seen in my reporting, I've been going up to Taliban fighters on the street and talking
Amazing.
to them and interviewing them, and they're pretty relaxed, most of them, and they're in a good mood, right? They're sort of high on the victory. So for now, I feel safe. I feel much more keenly aware of how so many Afghans are not safe and they don't have American passports, whereby at the end of this, they can be like, okay, I've had enough now. I want to leave. They don't get to leave. In terms of how we're going to leave the country, that's something we're always looking at. We're constantly reassessing. Security is like the most important thing for our teams. But for the moment, I feel like I need to keep reporting this story.
And I don't want to keep you much longer. The Biden administration has said that this was an utter surprise, that they didn't know the Taliban would take over so quickly. Do you think that's an operational failure, an intelligence failure? Was it a surprise to you?
I think, to be fair, it really was a surprise to everyone, including, by the way, some Taliban fighters who I talked to who were like, yeah, even we were like, whoa, this is happening really fast. The resistance melted away so quickly, Jessica. It was insane. We would go past the army checkpoint and just see Afghan soldiers running out of it and hailing down civilian cars and disappearing. They weren't willing to fight. So I don't think anyone could have predicted that it would have happened this quickly. But always, when you're talking about withdrawing troops from a country after 2 decades of war, you have to be prepared for every eventuality, right? There have to be sort of mechanisms in place to try to avoid the kind of chaotic and gut-wrenching and heartbreaking images that we've seen coming out of the airport, people literally clinging to the fuselage of Air Force carriers to try to get out of here.
Do you have any sense? I mean, the Taliban's gotten media savvy and they're saying the right things right now, but after the cameras leave in 2 months, any sense what the country will be like then? Do they have the ability to govern?
So, I mean, that's the $1 million question. They really want to show that they can govern. I actually spent time with the Taliban like a year and a half ago, and they were already sort of talking about that. Look, we hold territory. We're running the hospital. We're running the school. That's producer Brent Swales there in the background. It takes a village, people. And here's the thing. It's really different fighting and being an insurgency or, a guerrilla warfare than running a country. And people, I don't know how much patience they'll have. The Taliban understands that they made mistakes before. They say that they're not going to make them again. But so far from what we've seen, it's impossible to predict. I think most people are really skeptical. That's why you're seeing so much fear, so much heartache, and so much horror.
Last question. Is it just a cruel irony that the Taliban is going to be in charge of Afghanistan once again on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks?
Yeah, you know, it is, but I also think it's a moment for Americans just to take stock for a beat. And like, no one's saying that America needed to stay in this war for another 10 years and Americans needed to keep dying to create a situation that obviously was not able to be sustained. But I do think this is 20 years of war. Thousands of Americans died, tens of thousands of Afghans died. Like, let's think about this for a moment. Let's process this for a moment. Let's learn from this moment so that hopefully we might not find ourselves in it again.
Well, we're learning because you're there doing the work. Thank you so much. I hope you can get sleep.
Thank you. I don't know if sleep's on the cards, but it's always great to talk to you, Jessica. And thank you guys so much.
Be safe.
Bye.